Hi friends, welcome to another video on Tutorials Point with me, Richa. Well, today we are going to talk about a very interesting module and something which is very close to my heart, and that is the aviation module. So today we are going to talk about how to become a flight attendant and the journey in the life of a flight crew. Well, when we talk about flight attendants, I'm sure most of the people who are listening to this particular video right now might be thinking that, at some point or the other in their life, they want to become a cabin crew or a flight attendant. Well, the day is not far when you might just become a flight crew. So let's get started on this particular module on what are we going to learn in terms of how to be a good flight attendant. Let's see what's on the agenda. Well, we are going to talk about subtopics like this. Want to become a flight attendant and how to go about becoming a flight attendant. How to apply for a job and what is the interview procedure going to be like. What to expect once you are selected as a cabin crew. You will need to be prepared with what are the expectations. Roles and responsibilities of a cabin crew. So what exactly is going to be required out of a cabin crew? We'll talk about your roles and responsibilities. A day in the life of a flight attendant. So what does a day look like for an air hostess? We are going to discuss on the same. Keep watching. Well, if we have to talk about who exactly a flight attendant, an introduction to this particular module on aviation, we'll look at it. It's basically trying to understand the personal attributes required by a cabin crew to carry out all the roles and responsibilities while keeping in mind the safety aspect of the passengers as well as the service aspect of the passengers. And that is the crucial to roles and responsibilities of a flight attendant. Who exactly is a flight attendant? Well, this lady on the slide looks really nice and chirpy, and today we're going to talk about what exactly goes into becoming a flight attendant. So a flight crew or a cabin crew or an air hostess, she is called by different names, and let's look at what the definition for a flight attendant is. Well, flight attendants or cabin crew, or also known as steward or stewardesses, as well as air hostesses, members of an air crew employed by the airline primarily to ensure the safety of the aircraft and the passengers, as well as keeping in mind the service aspect and always having a smile on their particular face. And that is who an air hostess is. She's taking care of all the passengers, she's taking care of the flight. The cabin crew is also taking care of the flight deck crew, which is the pilot and the co-pilot. Well, certain facts, friends, I'm going to share with you about a flight attendant. You all might think a flight attendant's job is only to smile and have a nice, customer service with the passengers, serving tea and coffee and serving lunch, breakfast, dinner, etc. Well, there are certain myths and facts which I'm going to share with you on flight attendants. Let's take a look at those. Well, even if there were no services of food or beverage in a particular airline, there will still be a minimum requirement of 4 cabin crew in that particular aircraft. Hence, we are looking at not only the service aspect but also the safety aspect of the passengers of the aircraft. So even if no food and service, there will still be a minimum requirement for a cabin crew to be on board that aircraft. Supposed to excel in customer service, and they have to be extremely friendly. You will never ever see a look of anger on a flight attendant's face because that is their main role and responsibility. Always have a smile on the face. They are to abide by strict rules on their appearance. Well, to be a cabin crew is not an easy task. You have to really take care of your skin, your weight, your grooming, your overall appearance, and that's what's important. Well, they are also trained to deliver babies on board. So if there is a pregnant woman on board and she's close to her due date, a flight attendant is absolutely trained to deliver a baby on board. Flight attendants are quizzed before each and every flight of theirs. They are quizzed about certain safety aspects and certain service aspects before each flight. They are backup flight attendants at the airport. Well, there are backup flight attendants. The reason being, if any of the flight attendant on board the aircraft falls ill or is not keeping well, there are backup people waiting at the airport just to replace them in case there might be a need for the same. The cabin crew gets better meals than you. Well, you heard that right. The meals that passengers get, a cabin crew gets a better meal than the passengers. Well, as we mentioned before, there are a lot of responsibilities of a flight attendant. The main three responsibilities of a flight attendant is firstly the safety aspect, making sure that the passengers are absolutely safe, and that's the number one responsibility of a flight attendant. The second responsibility is the service aspect, wherein you have to have a smile on your face and be very nice to the passengers. And the third aspect is the first aid. Well, if a passenger gets a cut or is bleeding or is anything that happens to a passenger, there is a first aid kit on board the aircraft, and the cabin crew is knowing how to handle that particular situation of first aid. What is the eligibility to become a cabin crew? Well, if you are watching this video right now and you really want to become a cabin crew or a flight attendant, this is what the eligibility factors of a cabin crew are. They are required to have a certain educational qualification. Well, you need to be educated in a particular manner, meaning you can be from any of the streams, arts, commerce or science, that really does not matter, but you need to have a 12th pass certificate of education. You need to have a certain age profile. Well, for domestic airlines, if you are 18 years and above, you can qualify to become a flight attendant. However, for international flights, they look for 21 years and above. So if you are less than 21, you cannot fly for an international airline. There are certain weight and height requirement, and that depends from airline to airline. A flight attendant needs to know how to swim, because you might be at a situation wherein your flight might ditch into the water. You need to know how to do swimming. They need to be very, very fit and healthy. A flight attendant will never be fat and ugly looking. You need to be fit, and according to your appearance, you have to look really nice and groomed well. They need to know a second language. Well, it's always an added advantage if you know a second language, which can be anything, domestically or even internationally. To know a foreign language is an added advantage for a flight attendant. So for all those people out there who are watching this video, if you know a second language, it's a really good thing. If you do not know a second language, it's time to learn a new language. So friends, there are certain qualities which are looked for in a flight attendant, and this will really help you to understand when you go for an interview, the interviewer might be judging you on certain competencies and certain qualities. So let's have a look at what these qualities are for a cabin crew. The first quality looked for in a cabin crew is maturity. Well, you need to be mature because you're going to be handling passengers who might be, angry, irritated, demanding, etc. So you need to know how to handle these passengers. They might be very elder to you, or they might be really, really younger to you as well. So what you need to do is be mature and learn how to be mature in a tactful situation. The next quality looked for in a cabin crew is having tactfulness or diplomacy. Well, it's good to be being honest, and integrity is very essential quality in a cabin crew. However, at times you might be faced with a situation wherein you have to be a little diplomatic about that situation. So that's another quality looked for in a cabin attendant. Well, the third thing which is looked for in a cabin crew is being empathetic. Now, what is being empathetic? Empathetic means being able to feel, rather be in somebody else's shoe and think from that person's point of view. When you're really doing that, you're being empathetic, and that's another quality required for a cabin crew. A cabin crew also needs to be adaptable. Well, you'll be meeting people with different nations, or rather different cultures, different communities. You need to be flexible and not have a rigid attitude in life. You need to learn how to adapt according to people, adapt according to different situations that you might be placed into. A very important quality looked for in a cabin crew is having a positive attitude. Well, flying is not only rosy or glamorous all the time. You will be faced in situations which will be really demanding and stressful. So what you need to do is have a good attitude, and a positive attitude is the must thing to have in a cabin crew. Well, a cabin crew needs to be really sincere and dedicated towards his or her work, and that's very important quality looked for in a cabin crew. You need to have a good judgment power or judgment of situations. Well, when you're flying for a particular airline, you might be faced with an emergency situation at times, and hence it's important to be good at judgment. Well, you might be faced with situations wherein a passenger who's entering an aircraft doesn't really look nice to you, or doesn't really look how a regular customer or passenger is supposed to look like. Here you need to be very, very smart and be having great judgmental powers. Needless to say, a flight attendant needs to be extremely friendly by nature. She needs to be an extrovert person. You cannot be sitting in one particular corner of the aircraft or sulking or being lonely. You need to go out there, talk to your passengers, build rapport, build connect, and really be friendly. She needs to be a good communicator. Well, communication is a very important part of the airline industry. You need to talk to people, you need to really communicate well your thoughts, your ideas to people. Needless to say, a flight attendant needs to have a lot of patience. Well, the situation that you might be placed in might really rib you of these patience, and hence it's very essential and important to hold on to your patience, not to lose your cool, not to give in to situations wherein a passenger might be screaming at you, shouting at you, or very, very demanding of you. You need to still breathe, be easy, be relaxed, and handle that situation well and be patient about it. Very important, the last factor or quality of a cabin crew is she needs to have a lot of knowledge. Well, flight attendants need to really read up a lot and be knowledgeable about certain procedures, certain things that's required in their manuals. So you need to have a lot of knowledge. Friends, these were certain qualities that we spoke about which will really help you to understand that a cabin crew's job is not only to do service, she needs to have a lot of qualities which are looked for by an interviewer when you go for a job interview for a flight attendant. Let's look at certain more qualities that's required of you. Certain leadership qualities. Well, if you want to be a senior in the flight crew, being a purser who is a senior flight attendant, you need to have certain leadership qualities, and that's very important. You need to have a good team spirit because you're going to be working with 5, 6 or even 10 crew members at one point of time. So you need to be a very good team player. You need to act like a guide. You need to be really, really customer service oriented, and that needs to reflect in your attitude, the willingness to really wow your customers or passengers. Prioritizing others' safety and comfort. A flight crew's life is not always very relaxed. She has to also be looking at other people's comfort and prioritizing on other people's priorities rather than her own or his own priorities. So comfort for the passenger comes before her comfort. She needs to be a quick decision maker. There might be a situation wherein you need to take decisions so quickly in a flash of a second, and that's where as a flight attendant you need to make sure that you are good and quick with your decision making powers. A 1 second or a 5 second delay can really cause a lot of damage to a lot of people faced in an emergency situation. So she needs to be very quick with her decision making. She needs to be composed and attentive. As mentioned before, there might be situations wherein she might lose her patience, and that is where she needs to be calm, composed, and look very, very attentive. Now, certain specific requirements are there for different airlines all across the country or even international airlines. There are specific requirements which each and every airline has out of their particular cabin crew. Now, some airlines might want the crew to have multiple speaking, language speakers. So for them, that is a priority. For certain particular airlines, they might look for having only good looks in a particular cabin crew. For some other airlines, they might look at knowledge as a part of their cabin crew member team. So it really depends from airline to airline what is their specific requirement. Now, very important part and aspect of being a flight attendant is she needs to do a good service. Let's quickly take a look at what kind of service she needs to do. She needs to direct and assist the passengers in an event of an emergency. such as directing the passengers to evacuate a plane whenever there is an emergency situation. She needs to be able to direct passengers out of the aircraft in case of an evacuation. Announce and demonstrate certain emergency procedures such as use of oxygen masks, seat belts, life jackets, etc. She needs to be good at making these announcements. Walk the aisle of the plane to make sure that the passengers have complied with all the safety requirements which are needed prior to takeoff and prior to landing. Verify that the first aid kits and certain emergency equipments on board the aircraft, for example, the oxygen bottle or the fire extinguisher, needs to be in a workable and a good condition. Administer first aid to the clients or to the passengers in distress. Now, a crew member is trained on all of these aspects. Certain other things that she needs to take care of. She needs to attend pre-flight briefing. Now, pre-flight briefing, which we will discuss in more detail, is all about getting all the cabin crew together along with the pilots, the co-pilots, and talking about the safety and the service requirements for that particular flight. Prepare the passengers and aircraft for landing as well as following the procedures of the airline or the aircraft. Determine special assistance. Now, there might be certain passengers who need special assistance. For example, UNM, which is an unaccompanied minor, or sick people or old age people. She needs to be able to handle those people in a very, very special attentive manner. Check to ensure that food, beverages, blankets, pillows, whatever is needed by the passengers in the airline, they are in sufficient supply and adequate supply. The worst thing that can happen on the aircraft is half of the passengers having blankets and pillows and other half not being able to get them because of inadequate supply. So flight attendant's responsibility is, as a service procedure, she needs to make sure everybody on board the aircraft gets all of these things. Reassure the passengers when situations such as turbulence are encountered. When the airline shakes because of turbulence up in the air amidst the crowds, that is where the flight attendant needs to really go out there and soothe the passenger and assist them. A day in a life of a cabin crew. Well, to look at a day of a life of a cabin crew, let's look at what are the things she does and what does her day look like. Welcome on board. She needs to welcome people on board. She needs to have a pre-flight briefing before each and every airline. Time to rock and roll, which is again on board the aircraft. When you're there, you really need to have a lot of fun and make sure that you're there for your passengers. Rise and shine onto the aircraft, and till the time the boarding is completed, you go to your welcome, or rather the destination that is awaiting for you. So let's look at each of these things in a little detail now. Well, the first thing is welcome on board. Hundreds aspire to become a cabin crew or a flight attendant. There are millions and billions of people all across the country who are dying to become an air hostess or a flight crew. A dynamic profession which offers a lot of personal and professional growth, and I'm sure you'll agree to it. A cabin attendant's job is not a regular 9-to-5 job, and there are a lot of different things which happen, and it's a lot of fun if you are ready for that kind of a career. Sky is an amazing playground, and you get to enjoy, you have your office on top of the clouds, and what wonderful way to have an office not on the ground but up in the air. From a distance, cabin crew seems to do very little but just look beautiful and just look nice and have a smile on their face, but there is a lot more of heartbreaking work which goes behind the scenes. There's more to what actually meets the eye. It's not only a glamorous stint, there is a lot of back-breaking hard work which a lot of people don't know about it. They only look at a flight attendant and they think that wow, her job is so nice and so glamorous, but there is a lot of hard work. Well, she has to report for duty, a lot in advance than what the passengers have to report. So she really needs to get up early and report at least 2 hours prior to the departure time. She needs to wake up, get dressed, put on her uniform, put on the makeup which is absolutely spick and span and impeccable. She has to ensure that she has packed everything. If it's a day flight, rather going in the morning and coming back in the evening, she only needs to have a small bag. But if it's a night halt or a layover flight, in that particular case, she needs to carry some belongings and rather a little bigger bag for that. Company transportation is provided for each and every flight attendant at whatever time of the day your flight may be. A transportation would be provided to you. You will have a cab and a driver ready for use to take you to the airport and back to your home. You meet the rest of the crew for the day and you start with your in-flight briefing. What is a part of the briefing? The briefing is nothing but coming together of all the flight crew, wherein you talk about that particular flight, who all are going to be there. The main crew or the lead cabin crew actually also divides the crew into different positions which they will take on board the aircraft. The briefing lasts for approximately between 15 to 20 minutes and it's headed by the in-flight manager or the purser. Plans of the flight service are there, assignment of positions are there, and certain questions discussed with regards to safety and service are discussed. So the flight purser will ask certain questions and the other crew will answer those questions. If a manager feels that a crew is not really updated with regards to certain safety or service questions, she might actually not take that flight crew on board the aircraft, and that is where the backup flight attendant will be there. All proceed for in-flight briefing and the alcohol test. Well, before each and every flight, the manager of the flight needs to ensure that the crew has not taken any alcohol or any kind of drugs that is going to be detrimental to their, their careers. So, and they will be they will be grounded for that particular month or even couple of months to come. So, she needs to be absolutely without any intoxicated of drugs or alcohol. Well, after the briefing, the flight crew, the entire set of crew go on to the aircraft. Once they go on aircraft, there are certain things that that particular crew needs to do. They need to stow over their baggage, at the place designated for them to keep the baggage. They have to make sure that they do certain checks of safety equipments on board the aircraft. They need to make sure that the plane is absolutely spick and span and ready for the passengers to come. And they have to have a final check which is going to be done by the flight purser. She takes a round and see if everything is proper, and then they give a go-ahead sign for passengers to come on board the aircraft. Well, when the passengers do start coming in, what do the flight attendant have to do? Let's take a look. They need to stand in the cabin and welcome these passengers with a greeting or a time of the day according to that, and also welcome them and assist them to their seats. Help the passengers to stow their luggage. Now, it's very important that the flight crew or cabin crew do not lift these heavy bags themselves. They should always ask for the help of a passenger to keep these bags. Boarding is complete and the crew needs to prepare for takeoff. After takeoff, food and beverage is going to be carried out, the service of food and beverage. Apart from F&B, also, the following things have to be offered to the passengers. On ground, passengers may ask for a couple of things like newspapers or magazines or water, etc. She needs to make sure that she's assisting the passengers with these. Headsets might be given, blankets, pillows, hot or cold towels. In case you are traveling business class or first class, there's a lot of on-board service, on-ground service which happens. And over long haul flights, the crew takes turns for sleeps and relaxation time. So there are additional crew carried for very long flights. And once one set of crew finishes their duties, the other set of crew is relaxing and sleeping, and then they take over. Well, once you land into that particular destination, and that is where you welcome the passengers to that particular destination, they say goodbye to the passengers and they make sure that nothing is left back behind the passengers on the aircraft. You pack your belongings and you leave the aircraft with your cabin crew and you proceed for an in-flight briefing after the aircraft is done. You proceed to the hotel in case there is a night halt. So whenever you're doing a layover flight, you need to go along with your crew and check into the hotel. Accommodation is always given to the crew in the best of hotels, always in the 5 stars and the 7-star hotel. Everything is taken care of, your food, your, everything. So you need to be very relaxed about it. Even your transportation is taken care of. Utilize the day according to your wishes and make sure that you're really well rested before your next flight, which is probably going to be in the next day. So you need to make sure you catch up on your sleep. Well, there are certain additional perks for being a flight crew. Let's quickly take a look at what these perks are. Every day you have a new flight, you meet new people. It's a brand new world every single day. It's not a boring 9-to-5 job wherein you go in the morning and come back in the evening. There are irregular hours and irregular routines. You form friendships that might last you a lifetime. You explore places that you have only dreamt of visiting. You want to go to London, you want to go to Paris, you want to go to Chicago or New York. The places you really want, your dream of visiting, well, this is your dream come true job. So you get to visit all those places, and guess what? Free of cost. You also get paid for making these journeys. You will build more than a career, and you will enjoy experiences that no other job will offer you ever. So you really have a lot of fun doing this particular job. Your family, your brothers, your sisters and your parents get to travel absolutely free of cost, only paying the necessary airport taxes. It's not a regular 9 to 5 job. You might not have Saturday and Sundays off as well. So you're flying on festivals, you're flying on weekends, but you get your other days off as a compensation. You may need to fly on festivals and holidays as well. Well friends, that makes us come to a conclusion of this particular module on how to become a flight attendant and the journey in the life of a flight crew. I do hope you have enjoyed listening to this particular module as much as I've enjoyed teaching you on this. Thank you for listening to us.